On today's show, the San Diego Padres hate you, the fans, so much for trying to believe in them losing the second game and therefore the series against the Los Angeles Angels. Recapping that, including Adam Mazur's splendid debut, Manny Machado low-key kind of turning it around, and then talking about Garrett Crochet trade rumors that came out yesterday. So once again, a meaty episode. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, June 5th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You might be familiar with my baseball-related work over on Just Baseball, where I write about the Padres and other stuff, and also host a podcast called Baseball versus the World that you should go check out. But if you find me on Twitter, at Javipeno, Javiiipeno, you can find the links to all that stuff. So don't worry. Go check that out, guys. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Man, oh man. Yeah, that stunk. It really stunk. Last night, the Padres losing by a score of 4-2 because they hate you, man. They just absolutely hate you. Padres offense has gone quiet over these past few games, scoring only a combined 5 runs across 3 different games and against pitchers that are frankly not amazing. Actually, you know what? No. Wasn't it Reagan's? Actually, never mind. They deserve some credit for the Royals one. The last game of the Royals series, they did go against Cole Reagans. He's their best pitcher. So a little bit on that one. But against the Angels, only scoring 3 runs. There's a lot to talk about, I think, with this team right now. We're going to talk about just last night's game in general, doing a little bit of a game recap, talking about some of the narratives with this team, some more general things about this team, why last night was a little frustrating, although I do maintain my belief that I've said a lot about the strength of schedule. But let's start first with Adam Mazur. Let's start positively for once on this podcast, I guess. Adam Mazur making his San Diego Padres debut, and he does pretty okay. 6 innings, only 1 earned run on 2 hits. It was a Luis Rengifo single, and then 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. The 4 walks, obviously not good. But to me, I kind of almost chalked that up to pregame jitters or debut jitters, whatever you want to call it. I just feel like that's been one of the things, his calling card, is that he's not going to necessarily give up free passes, I think. And I think that Adam Mazur also showed what we had talked about in yesterday's episode, which is the slider. On 14 swings, he generated 4 whiffs, and he had one particular strikeout on Joe Adell that was nasty. Was it actually a ball? Maybe, but it was still 3 strikes, and the movement on it, the way it sank at the very end especially, was really, really great. The vertical drop on that last pitch was amazing, and he didn't give up too much hard contact. Yes, it was an Angels team without Mike Trout, and he's not all that fantastic, they're not all that fantastic. But as I've said before, when talking about these back end guys, and in this case, a back end pitcher who's also making his debut as a prospect, a young guy, even against bad teams, performances from your back end guys like this are huge. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your Matt Waldrons and Randy Vasquez's, that when they slice up the Marlins, that's a sign that they're going to do that against other teams. But rather, it's just this is a long season, and including against bad teams, you need to step up. Frankly, I don't even know what it means to say anymore, to say bad teams, because there's only in the National League, there's only 4 teams with a winning record right now. So I just want to throw that out there. It's literally one of the only low-key good things going for the Padres' playoff chances right now. It's just that there's no other team really outside the obvious ones, like your Phillies, like your Braves, like your Dodgers. And I forgot who the last one is. Who's the last good team in the National League? Phillies, Braves, Dodgers. What's the last one? You guys remember? Whatever. Aside from those teams, everyone else has been bad, so that's been helpful for the Padres. Maybe the Giants, they might still be up. I don't know why I don't look these things up before. Milwaukee, that stupid, annoying team. So even against these bad teams, to have the back end of your rotation do very well is awesome, and the back end of the rotation has been good over these last 3 games. The Padres did not lose that game against Cole Reagans because they just got outdueled in a pitcher's matchup. Yesterday's game for the Padres, not Adam Mazur, on Monday's game, I thought today was Thursday for a second. Monday's game, Matt Waldron, he only gives up 1 earned run in 6 1/3. And then in Sunday's game, Our guy Michael King only gives up 1 earned run in 7 innings. So while they haven't had necessarily like wipe out, oh my God starts, there haven't been a lot of strikeouts from Padres starting pitchers. Bottom line is they haven't given up a lot of runs, and the bullpen and the offense have both combined to just not produce enough, which has resulted in this 3-game skid lately, which means, you guessed it, they're back to 500. That has been the story of the Padres all year. As soon as they're on a winning streak, they revert back to 500, almost like they're upset. They're like upset at you, the fans, for believing in them. Am I instigating something right now by saying that? Yes, but I stand by it. It's like they actively get annoyed. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why I feel like this team actively gets annoyed when people believe in them. That's just the vibe as a fan, what it feels like. But overall, like, it's really unfortunate that they wasted Adam Mazur, especially his debut performance like this, and wasting the last 3 pitches they had. But of course, that wasn't it. Again, not too much to read into Mazur as far as I'm concerned. I think he's through consistent strikes, although he did give up some free passes, but not giving up hard contact, even if it's against a bad Angels team, and especially some of the strikeouts, some of the swing and miss on his slider. Again, that strikeout on Joe Adell was impressive. Even if it was a little bit of a lucky call, bottom line is that thing's drop was incredible. So love to see that. We'll see what he does in his next start, which, by the way, will come against also probably a not great team. Either it be the Diamondbacks, probably not the Diamondbacks, it'd probably be the A's. It's probably going to be like his next start. So shouts to him. That's good. Good news for Adam Mazur. Hopefully he can continue the good work. But of course, obviously that's not it. The Padres didn't hit in this one. They really didn't, unfortunately. They got absolutely sliced and diced by one Sir Patrick Sandoval. By the way, coming into this game, a 5.34 ERA. So while yesterday I did bring up that Tyler Anderson has low-key been like pretty good for the Angels this year, a player that I once wanted the Padres to acquire, he's been okay this year, like low 2s ERA. Like, okay, at least we can make the excuse that, all right, that guy's actually been pretty good this year. But if you put any lefty on the mound, including Patrick Sandoval, who basically has only had like he had like a 2-year stretch that was okay, high 3.6 ERA in 2021, and then 2.91 in 2022. He's basically just a peak innings eater. He's the Chad innings eater in a lot of ways, where it's just that's kind of all he's been doing. For the most majority of his career, he's been really ineffective. He just can't seem to get enough strikeouts when he needs them. What was it heading in the start? 5.34 ERA, and he goes 6 innings, giving up only 1 earned run on 4 hits, striking out 7 as well, by the way. The lone RBI coming against him, coming from Manny Machado, who, by the way, seriously, deserves credit. Machado's looked a lot better lately. He's been making a lot better contact. He's been swinging at stuff that's low. He actually gets an RBI in this game from a lower pitch that ends up scoring a runner. That was really great. He's been walking more in yesterday's game. He did not have one, but in the game before, he had 2 walks against the Angels, and then he also generated 3 walks in that second game of the Royals series. So I'm just saying he's starting to walk more. He's not striking out like 2 or 3 times a game. So he's slowly getting back into it. And by the way, 3 stolen bases in the last like 2 weeks. Like, he's been running around too. Low key, I don't know what's going on. Manny's like, oh, I can't hit for power anymore. I guess I got to become Ricky Henderson. So he's had some stolen bases. So that's been good too. 3 for 4 night for him with an RBI. Really good night. He's been really good lately. Seriously. Not just, yes, he only has 1 home run over the stretch, but even still, if this guy's down year, which could maybe be supplanted or reinforced, or it could give credence to the whole shoulder issue, and maybe that's why he's been bad. If the version of Manny Machado that we get this year is like a 250, 260 hitter with like a good walk rate, especially the way that it's been lately, and then maybe he just hits 20 home runs and plays good defense, that's okay. Would it be disappointing? Yes, of course, because this is a guy who you've just extended to a big contract. But for me, what always annoys me about this Padres team is that there's never an in-between. I talked about this with the Braves series, where the Braves have had a lot of players that have been underperforming, but it's not like they've been actively crap. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they've been actively crap. They've at least not been actively destroying the team. So Xander Bogaerts and Manny Machado are the examples of that. But this year, still not amazing, but his WRC plus is up to 101. His walk rate has increased just a tad bit to 8.5%, and his strikeout rate has cut down from 2% to the 23% that it was up at one point. So he's been a lot better, and he deserves credit for it. And again, at the minimum, he's a 4-win player, right? If he can be what he was in 2021, when they did have that collapse, I know, but if he can be what they were in 2021, which was basically just a steady player that didn't get hot, 4.5 F4, played good defense, 123 WRC plus. If he can bounce back into be at least that this year, I think that's a pretty good win for a player that might have an ailment. That is the reason for why his season wasn't so great. Even if we wanted an MVP type season, this is still pretty good. So shouts to Machado. He's been a lot better. But unfortunately, the Angels offense was better. In this game, Yuki Matsui is the story, getting absolutely torched in this one, giving up 3 earned runs, not even a single out. So unlike his last bad blow-up appearance when he got 1 out and gave up 3 earned runs and blew the game for the Padres, blew the save opportunity for the Padres, brought in this one, and just can't hang. Just gets absolutely torched, making Enyel De Los Santos have to clean up, who, by the way, does an okay job at it, for what it's worth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he gave up the 2 hits, but, like, hey, he's trying over 2 innings. You know, the poor guy is trying. He's had to clean up for this guy a couple times, so not great. Not great. We're going to talk a little bit more about Yuki Matsui, and then we'll get into Garrett Crochet and some other things about this team, including their inability to hit lefties in just a minute, guys. But first, I want to take a second to talk about, and I want you guys to guess who I'm going to talk about. What do you think? What do you think? We're talking about one of my favorite sponsors because I use them all the time, and that is Game Time, folks. Let me tell you, when you want to go to games, this is the place you go to because, you know, maybe you're busy, maybe you don't know if you're going to be free. They have flash deals up to the time that the game starts. And this could be Major League Baseball, this could be NFL, this could be NBA, WNBA, NHL, soon to be probably something else, maybe soccer tickets, I don't know. They've also got concert, comedy, theater, all that stuff. And what I love is actually you can see views from your seats, which is really cool. They can show you exactly what your seat's going to look like. And they've got all these deals that literally it's going to get cheaper up to the moment. That's the thing about them. Last minute tickets. That's kind of their thing. Last minute, you find it out. Oh, wow, I don't have to look after the kids tonight or whatever. I don't know why that's my first example, but check it out at Game Time, guys. Pick out any specific matchups, any specific things you want to attend, and guess what? They're going to show you the deals, zone deals, flash deals all the time with last minute tickets and the lowest prices guaranteed over at Game Time. And also event cancellation protections. If you find better seats in the same area, they'll credit you back. Really, really good stuff with Game Time. So what are you waiting for? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and spell that code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed with Game Time. And just like that, folks, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, your team every day, free and available on all platforms, including the tube of the U. And let me tell you, Yuki Matsui was really bad. Oh, God, that was terrible. I'm sorry. Oh, that was so bad. I'm sorry. But yeah, Yuki Matsui was terrible last night. He's been bad. And he's been really unsteady. He just has this vibe of someone you don't trust. And I talked about earlier in the season that one thing I like about him is that he's played in some big games in Japan. He's been an all-star kind of player there. He's had like the most saves. Right? I think he had 50 over like 2 seasons or something like that. He's been good there. And he actually has gotten a little better with his strikeouts lately. I think he's balanced some of his pitching repertoire just a little bit, choosing the right times to throw the fastball, and then of course the splitter, his put-away pitch. But these past 2 outings have shown you the problems with him. First of all, as I said earlier in the season, the problem with him that always concerned me was the fact that he was just walking more batters than striking them out. Now, that's not the case right now, but what is the case right now is that he's walking way too many batters. In terms of his overall numbers right now, this man has been criminal with that walk rate. 15.9% walk rate is insane. And while, yes, the 18.7% strikeout rate is good, the fact that there are too many batters that are basically just sitting on him, clearly. They're basically just sitting on his pitches and waiting for him to throw the fastball that they like because they know that you probably can't hit the splitter because that's his ace pitch. He's been dreadful lately. And I think that with that outing is evidence that you can no longer use him in high leverage situations. And obviously, the blown save opportunity was rough. Yes, maybe could you have used a Wandy Peralta? Could you have maybe put out Robert Suarez? But this, Mike Schilt, he's got other games to manage for. So you bring in a guy who had been okay, 2.8 ERA, by the way, heading into that outing with the Royals. That's really important to bring up. And his last couple outings, he had been getting strikeouts and not walking anybody either, right? Past few appearances before that, no walks. Yeah, before that Royals start, no walks in 3 innings. So 3 1/3 innings, actually. and then 4 strikeouts. So he had been playing better, and then unfortunately he blew up. But this could be a high leverage situation thing. And it's funny that prior to that blow up in Kansas City, he hadn't been awful in high leverage situations, but now in high leverage outings this year, he's given up 7 earned runs. That's a high ERA, and they're hitting .313 against him, and the split is genuine. In terms of just getting hits this year in high leverage situations, Yuki Matsui, 313 batting average allowed to opposing batters versus medium and low leverage, 179 and 190 respectively. So that already illustrates you right there. The guy's just been worse in high leverage situations, and I don't think that they can be in another position to put him there. I don't necessarily trust a Morejon as much in high leverage situations either, but I think you need to start changing it up a little bit, doing your best to make sure that a Santos and Santos basically only had that one blow up, I believe it was against the Giants, but other than that, he's been like a steady, okay reliever. You can try out Wandy Peralta. I mean, you paid him, so you should try out Wandy Peralta a little bit more. And then if obviously you have Estrada and the two-headed King Rex and Estrada and Robert Suarez, but when those guys aren't available, you need to figure out a little bit better who to use as the long inning / 7th, 6th inning guy. But for now, Matsui, I think you can't put him there. You got to make sure that he's in lower leverage situations for a while, because that's dreadful. That's absolutely dreadful. And really frustrating, frankly, too, just to watch. It's like really annoying how this guy comes into the game and you feel it happening, right? You're like, immediately you're like, oh no, this isn't good. This isn't good whatsoever. Man, this is why I hate people who love talking about relief pitchers and all the time. And they're like, yeah, that's my favorite part of the game. Your favorite part of the game is guys that just can't get one out and blow up and give up 5. Give me a break. But anyway, that wasn't the only bad development from last night. Luis Campusano has to be discussed. The Hive is in danger. It's on life support. And as someone tweeted at me yesterday, pulling the plug to my tweet about that, the offensive regression for him has been egregious. 162 in the month of May batting average wise. And here's the thing is that he was a guy that you have to look at him as compared to other catchers. Offensively, this was a guy giving you like above 100 WRC plus. Like he had been really effective. And that's why I kind of defended him so much, is because my thing was, look, this guy has never really had a consistent chance. And at the minimum, he's always shown an ability to hit. But lately, that has not been the case. And his defense is what has disappointed me this year. I thought that, give him a little bit more time, he could at least be a little bit better. But now, and this might shock some people, given how he's hit at points, especially for the beginning of the season, negative 0.1 F4 right now. And that's because he's got an 82 WRC plus. That's worse than average for most catchers, right? So this is a guy who's not hitting anymore, and his defense is atrocious, right? And he's not getting unlucky either. If you want to go the weighted on base route, weighted on base 275, expected weighted on base 287. He's not walking, he's not hitting the ball hard. And while yes, he has good contact skills, that's very cool. But if you're not hitting the ball hard and you're not walking consistently, I don't really care. And you know what I mean? Because he's kind of like the Luis Ariz type of batter, except not actually hitting the ball out of the infield. You know what I'm saying? So that's been the problem with Campusano, to the point where, yes, I do think that the Padres need to consider a trade potentially. Because if you're going to... He had like a .4 F4 at one point, guys. Like, .4 isn't amazing, but it shows you that, like, the hitting is pretty good for him, and at least you can maybe pair that with a Higashioka and say, all right, he'll be our defensive player, Campusano will be the offensive player. And he's had some big hits this year, including in high-leverage situations, but for him to be this bad offensively over the last few weeks, to just completely kill any value that he had before, combine that, he had some pitch framing mishaps last night, some really bad ones. It almost looks lazy at points, where he grabs the ball below and he's just kind of like not even making an attempt to frame it. He's the worst qualified framer in baseball right now. That's how bad Luis Campusano has been. And don't get me wrong, we kind of knew this. We knew that his defense was a problem. But for me, my issue is what happened to the hitting, because that's what was keeping you above. Right? That's what was keeping you above. I know he doesn't strike out. I know he doesn't whiff on pitches. I know he makes, contact in some way. But the contact isn't good and it's not hard. So we're in a situation where this guy might be a trade piece, frankly, at the deadline. I could actually see that happening. I could see a situation in which the Padres say we need to move on. The only problem is that your Ethan Salas is not ready. I think that's been the biggest problem with this Padres catching situation, is that Ethan Salas isn't going to be ready for a bit. He's like a 17-year-old kid. So that's where we're at. Luis Campusano, really dreadful, and if he doesn't get better with his defense, then we're looking at Austin Nola again. It's like no matter, isn't it amazing that over these last few years, the Padres finally moved on from Austin Hedges and every catcher has been worse than him? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? That all we've asked is for guys to just be, even if they're not as good as a defensive player as Austin Hedges, just be better than him offensively. And apparently it's like, that's a lot to ask for. Now, I know that even Campusano is better offensively than Hedges, but you get my point, right? This is just making you kind of miss Austin Hedges, where it's like, okay, yeah, you won't get any hits from him, but at least you know he's going to be really great for your starting pitchers. So, yeah, I can't believe I'm saying it, but sort of missing Austin Hedges right now. Really annoying. Although that comment about Eric Hosmer was stupid, so never mind. Don't miss him. For those who don't remember, he basically alluded to losing Hosmer being the problem with the Padres, despite the fact that their epic collapse in 2021, Eric Hosmer was on the team. But whatever, what do I know? So really, really rough outing for Luis Campusano, and I just don't see it changing right now. I believe in his hit tool fundamentally, but he just looks bad up there. He has that thing where he dips down and tries to like swing the ball. Maybe he's been trying to pull the ball a little bit more, maybe launch it into the air more, but it's not working, whatever it is. And Lord knows we don't trust the Padres organization with making their batters better. So again, I don't know, guys. This is tough. Catcher might be something that the team needs to look into at the trade deadline. Campusano plus some prospects. Maybe that's what they do. I don't know. Because also, I don't really know who's free at the deadline. Elias Diaz of the Rockies? Maybe? I don't know. So that's rough. But folks, we got to talk about the Padres' general vibes and issues, specifically when it comes to lefties, and then talk about our guy, Garrett Crochet. The rumors that popped up yesterday that AJ Preller is in contact with the White Sox for Garrett Crochet, whether or not that's feasible or not, what it says about AJ Preller and this potential Padres trade deadline. We'll get into it, guys. But first, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel, folks. Another longtime sponsor of this Locked On Padres podcast and most of the Locked On network, folks, is FanDuel. And here's the thing. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL. And FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. That's right. Finals and Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't know if the Stanley Cup finals are on just yet. I don't follow hockey too much, but I know that they're right there, right? I know the Rangers just got eliminated, so RIP to my East Coast friends. And then, obviously, NBA Finals, Mavericks, Celtics. That's going to be fun. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Bets, spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can check that out. And honestly, I don't know, man. I don't know. What am I feeling for the Padres? Who the heck is pitching tonight? Let me see. It's Dylan Cease. It's got to happen tonight. I've been saying this for a while, but we're getting an ace start from Dylan Cease. So I'm going over on strikeouts for my guy Cease because it has to happen. His FIP is way too low, and he's been getting so many swings and misses. It's going to happen. It has to happen. It better. If he's bad tonight, I'm going to be really, really weirded out. And frankly, just be on I don't even know. They better not lose tonight. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, if you want to bet on the strikeouts over under, go check that out, guys. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every shot, every pitch, every throw count. And just like that, folks, we're in the waning moments of today's Locked On Padres episode. Sorry again for the late uploads as of late. Just been a rough little few days for me, wise. But better late than never, am I right? First, I just want to talk about another thing with the Padres. So we've had Yuki Matsui, and it's not just a one game, the not isolated incidents for the Padres. You know what I mean? And there's been three things. Yuki Matsui's high leverage problems, Luis Campusano's entire problems, and lastly, the Padres' lefty problem. I don't know what's going on here. And let me start first with the numbers. When it comes to all the Padres batters this year, the inability to hit lefties is incredible. They have a 119 WRC plus against righties this year and a 93 WRC plus against lefties. That's bad, and it's actually the 8th worst WRC plus against lefties in Major League Baseball. And their 119 against righties, I believe, is the second best in all teams in Major League Baseball. So just polar opposites, right? They're just going all over the place. But what's really frustrating about this is how out of nowhere it is when you look at players on this Padres team. So Profar, he's been an exception. He's been good against both. Donovan Solano, he's an exception. He's been good against both. But Tatis this year, 217 batting average and a 116 WRC plus. So he has drawn walks, but he's only hitting 217 against lefties, while he's got a 135 WRC plus against righties and a 285 batting average against them. His career, though, 293 against lefties and a 153 WRC plus against them, as opposed to hitting 273 against righties with a 133 WRC plus against them. So his career, he's actually worse at hitting righties. Not by much. Obviously, he's still good against righties. He's Tatis. He's good against both. But it says a lot that it's not like he's ever had a lefties problem. Like I said, 153 WRC plus against lefties in his career. This year, it's 116. And more importantly, looking at the batting average, 293 against lefties, 217 against them this year. That's annoying. Ha-Seong Kim, 203 batting average against lefties this year, and 233 against righties. For his career, he actually hits 264 against lefties and 232 against righties, and it's drastic. WRC plus against lefties for his career, 122. Righties, 94. But then this year, terrible against lefties. Jake Cronenworth, he's the only one that actually has shown before this year to not be great against lefties, right? 93 WRC plus in his career against lefties, hitting 236 against them, versus righties, he's got a 118. But this year, it's more horrid than usual. 44 WRC plus against lefties this year, 194 batting average, and then he's killing righties, 152. So that's been the problem with Jake this year. Despite all the good with the defense and everything, he's still been great, but can't hit lefties. He's always had problem against them. He's been below average, but he hasn't been AA against lefties. That's what's happening this year. Jackson Merrill, 200 batting average against lefties and a 26 WRC plus, so he's not even walking, as opposed to a 115 WRC plus against righties, 294 batting average. Oh, but there's more. Manny Machado, in fairness, been dreadful against both, but in his career, he's a 281 hitter against lefties, 128 WRC plus. He's actually been better against them than righties, but this year he's been bad against both, so he's a little bit different, but he's been struggling against lefties too. Luis Ariz, he's been bad against lefties this year. 91 WRC plus as opposed to 153 against righties. But in fairness, in his career, it's been the same thing, right? Like it has been the same thing. But it's still frustrating that the Padres bring in this guy that we didn't talk about enough that has just been really bad against lefties. Like he just hasn't been good against them. But still, he's been good against righties. But bottom line is this is another issue with the Padres. And then lastly, Xander Bogaerts. Now, he's hurt, obviously, so he's not as relevant anymore. But let's just talk up to why this has been a problem all year. 196. He hit against lefties, 71 WRC plus, as opposed to 227 and a 72 against righties. So not great. But his career numbers, 305, 131 WRC plus against lefties. He's literally better against lefties. That's what's so annoying about this team. And I think that this is a great microcosm for the general vibe and aura of the Padres, which is that they find new ways to be bad, new inventive ways to be bad to offset whatever good developments are going on. For this year, the good developments have been Dylan Cease, Matt Waldron, the bullpen for the most part, like Jeremiah Shire and Robert Suarez. And then you've got Jake Cronenworth returning to his 2020 form, right? He's been amazing. He's been almost as good as Freddie Freeman practically. And then Jurickson Profar is literally just Juan Soto now, apparently. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's entirely like a fluke. It just can't be. We played like 60 games. You know, you have all this stuff going well for you. Jackson Merrill has been okay, although bad against lefties. But then all that stuff I just mentioned, then you don't have average. This is what I was talking about with the Braves. Yes, the Braves have had players underperforming, but it's not like Matt Olson has a 42 WRC plus this year. He's just slowly getting there. That's my issue with this team. Xander Bogaerts, no. It's not just that you struggle, you're one of the worst hitters in baseball. Manny Machado, it's not just that you struggle, you've been one of the worst players, especially given the contract, in baseball. That's the annoying part about this team. Oh, you've got Jeremiah Estrada and Robert Suarez doing well? Well, guess what? Enyel De Los Santos blows up, and then Matsui blows up and has continued to stay blowing up, while Santos has evened out a little bit. Oh, you finally have, a little bit of value defensively. Well, guess what? Luis Campusano is going to be dreadful there to upend anything that you could get from your pitchers. That's what's so annoying about this team. They find a new way, because they're never just, Manny's hitting like 240, 340 on base. A little streaky, but he's been okay. No, it's like he's bad. Okay, Jake Cronenworth, you're not always great against lefties, but you've been great against righties. Oh, no. It's got to be that you're one of the worst qualified guys against lefties in baseball, especially given his stature and how good he's had of a season. That's what this tells me about this Padres team. And if you combine their inability to hit lefties on top of the fact that they can't hit at home, maybe that explains the inconsistency. Because one of those two things is going to happen every few days. And maybe that's why, dare I say, this team is super inconsistent. Because they're either at home or they're facing a lefty. Everyone looks like Randy Johnson whenever the Padres face a lefty this year. It's ridiculous. And given that they don't have career evidence showing that they're bad against lefties, that's what makes it 10 times more annoying. Because then that would just be a roster construction thing. You know what I mean? Okay, maybe you could bring up Arise. Okay, maybe Preller should have traded for someone else, and that, Arise has always been bad against lefties, and this didn't address that. But even still, it's still ridiculous. But what do I know? What do I know, guys? But lastly, I want to talk about Garrett Crochet. I've actually been talking about other stuff for way too long. Way too long. I probably should have started off the podcast with this, if we're being frank. But Padres reported yesterday interested in Garrett Crochet of the White Sox. And to me, I don't think this story is baloney. But I think that this story is, I think it's interesting because if they said interest in Jesus Luzardo, I'd be like, okay, cool. Every team in the league is interested in that guy right now. He's on one of the worst teams in the league. This is a team that already traded Luis Arraez before we were even close to the trade deadline, right? But I think that there's some value to this because it's not like everyone's thinking about Garrett Crochet. It's funny that yesterday's episode, I had brought up Eric Feed as a potential guy that the Padres could go after. And instead, we get a report about their best pitcher. Garrett Crochet has been incredible this year. 3.49 ERA, but all the expected stats especially are even better. And that's because of his strikeout rate that has been absolutely phenomenal this year. 33.3% strikeout rate, much better than even the time in 2021 when he was pretty good with 28.3%. He's been awesome, and he's not walking batters at all. Just in a very low 5.4% walk rate. This year, also on top of the 3.49 ERA, because of the strikeouts and the walks, expected ERA 2.2. His FIP 2.87. XFIP 2.48. This guy's a beast. But what's puzzling to me is he's 25 years old. Actually, he's 24 years old. He's 24 years old. He's about to be 25. And with this, he also has 2 more years of control, and he's super young, right? So to me, I see this and think, my reaction is that at the very least, this report tells us maybe one thing. AJ Preller will not be going for those aforementioned lower tier guys that I mentioned yesterday, like a Paul Blackburn. Is that surprising? No. The Padres have but the Padres tend to be the team that's going for the big fish. They're not usually making the under the radar moves, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes it's good where you go after, a Luis Arraez, a Dylan Cease, and they've been great. Or it's bad and you're like, dang, we could have just used like a Paul Blackburn. We could have just used an okay starter. If they were to make this trade, they would be giving up Robbie Snelling, is what I'll tell you. Robbie Snelling absolutely is going away in this deal. And potentially like a Leody DeVries as well. Because I think the White Sox are really rebuilding hard. And for you to go after their young guy, one of the only good things for that team, I just think that would take too much. And frankly, that's why I don't want to do it. I understand that this team needs to get better. I understand that. But my thing is, guys, what year are we on of all this team does is shed the farm and then trade for some big player, and then for whatever reason, something else bad happens, right? And I'm not saying that I should hope that this isn't going to happen because, look, Preller's, if anything, it tells us that he's going to go big, and he's probably going to trade a lot of players. This was one of my fears for this season, is that if his job is on the hot seat, which it might be, he's not going to care about the prospects. And I do. Because this is a team that has so many salaries locked in and so much money spent that you got to offset that with some cheaper players too. And to me, I look at this and say, that would just be such a haul. It'd be such a haul. And I just don't want to go down that road again. I'm sorry. I really don't. I'm accepting it. It'll be exciting. But I'm just saying, guys, because people get mad at me. Well, they made the NLCS. Cool. But this team has shown so much inconsistency. And what's important about that is if you want to blow up your farm for a team that you genuinely don't know will make the playoffs, it's not like the Padres are 8 games above 500 and we're like, yeah, we're going for it. Let's go for the World Series. No, this is a team that the definition of going for it is go for the playoffs. And that is not impressive. It's just not. You literally added an extra wild card. Like, it's not nearly as impressive to just be like, let's go for playoffs instead of let's go for it all and blow up our farm system for the 5th year in a row when this team has not consistently been a playoff team. They collapsed in 2021. They collapsed in 2019. They were good in 2020, but it was a shortened season. In 2022, they were good, and frankly, it was a little fluky in a lot of ways. Like, they didn't have Tatis for that whole year, and Manny Machado kind of carried the entire team and should have won the MVP, by the way. But you have all that stuff, right? And then 2023, look what happened. They just haven't shown consistency. The most games they've won under Preller is 89. I'm not saying that's bad, but they've had a lot of 81, 79, 82, 81. Why is this core has shown you nothing to say, yes, let's blow up our farm again? No, I'm just not a fan of it. I'm sorry. I just don't want to go down this route again. I don't. And I'm not saying that Robbie Stelling is going to be amazing. I just don't want to give up every remaining asset you have when you just don't know. What if you blow up your farm and you don't even make the damn postseason? That's totally possible. It's impressive. It really is. That you have Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Juan Soto. You've had all these great players on your team. Tatis, Jake Cronenworth. A Soto version season from Jerks and Profile right now. And we just don't know if we're going to make the playoffs. And that's bad, which is why I don't want to overcommit to this team. Now, we'll see. I want to wait and see until firstly, just get to the trade deadline, July 30th, my birthday, by the way. And then also, I want to see how they look, how many games they're up by the end of this stretch in which they're playing quote-unquote bad teams. Although this is why I don't necessarily care about strength of schedule, because it just shows you the Padres lose to bad teams all the time. So it doesn't really matter. I just don't believe in strength of schedule in baseball. I just don't. But if you do, we'll see. One last game against the Angels, then you get to play the D-backs, who have been really bad this year, and then you get to play the A's, and then you get to play the Mets. If they're not impressive, if they're only like one game up, if they're only 2 games up, something like that, then I need to understand why you're so bullish about wanting to blow up the farm again when that has not shown, given their recent history, to amount to consistent, concrete success. Maybe that's just me. I've been ranting a lot on today's episode, guys, but I promise you the vibes are still okay. Don't give up just yet. Onwards to tonight's game and beyond. But until that next time, ladies and gentlemen, of course, follow me on Twitter at Javiipeno, Javiipeno. Go get the show wherever you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. Thank you for listening to today's episode. We will be better with the time posting. I'll be a little bit earlier, I promise. But until that next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies, take care.